Good morning, everybody. This is the Personal Playlist Podcast, fondly referred to as the P3 on Voice Ed Radio. I'm Noah Daniel.
Music is a world within itself, with a language we all understand.
I am so excited to have David Michael Slater, born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, here on the Personal Playlist Podcast because we first met decades ago at camp and got to know each other at a leadership conference. Right now, he teaches in Reno, Nevada, where he lives with his wife and son. He is an acclaimed author of over 20 works of fiction for children, teens, and adults. His work for children includes the picture books Cheese Louise, The Boy in the Book, and Hanukkah Harvie versus Santa Claus, the early chapter book series, Mysterious Monsters, and the teen series Forbidden Books. David's work for adults includes the comic drama Fun and Games, which the New York Journal of Books called hilarious, and his newest book, We're Doing It Wrong, is an honest and insightful analysis of the issues plaguing American public schools, but any Canadian educator and beyond can get a lot of value from the issues raised and the brilliant solutions provided. He's launching his book on the 28th at Barnes & Noble, although Stephen Hurley, the founder of Voice Ed Radio, ordered it before I even told him you were coming on the show. Grateful to have you here. This is David Michael Slater.
Hey, Noah, thank you for all that.
Well, thank you for being here. I'm so happy that this worked out and the launch is coming.
Finally, yes, there's been a bunch of delays, but we've got it going. And supposedly, I'm told, if the news cycle allows, C-SPAN Book TV is going to broadcast it.
Wow. That's exciting. Michael Fullen, who, you know, for many educators is a person to listen to, had quite an interesting review of your book. He wrote, if you want a book with fresh ideas on perennial issues in education that are commonly and deeply misunderstood, David Slater's We're Doing It Wrong is a relentless page turner. Everything old is reinterpreted with new understanding as an invitation to act differently. School choice, merit pay, accountability, scripted curriculum, high needs parents, sage or guide, tenure, and 19 other ideas are sliced and diced in new ways. This is a makes you think treatment of major myths and education conundrums. Read it, think, and act differently. I was like, wow, I was reading it anyway, but thank you, Mr. Fullen, for the push I needed. Not that knowing you wasn't enough of a push.
Well, no kidding. I mean, I couldn't believe that he was willing to take the time to read that book, nor like the other 20 or so people who blurbed it. I mean, educators are practically the busiest people out there, so I was just so grateful for how many of them not only took the time to read it, but some of them offered specific feedback and lots of them offered blurbs. It really kind of blew me away, especially because it's virtually impossible to get people to read your fiction to blurb it. So I really was not optimistic when I started reaching out for these educators, but I was amazed and they were willing.
You know what? Part of it, I think, is, you know, because you're an educator, you have like an inside view, but you say things critically, but with compassion. And I think that from the second you start reading your book, people will be compelled by it. And it's something that's really worthy of a lot of conversation. It really is something that's necessary and something I don't think people should take for granted. So I'm excited that it's out there.
Thank you. I'm excited to see how people will react to it, because I did try to write it in a clear, very straightforward, non-jargony way that hoping that it would both that it would reach, I guess, three groups: teachers, obviously, but just anyone in the general public who's interested in education, who kind of knows that schools don't work right, but they don't really know why, just beyond the sound bites they hear on TV. And then, you know, fingers crossed, one or some people with the actual power to make changes might read it.
That was actually one of the most interesting points that you made, is most people who have power in education aren't actually educators. And it got me thinking about that in terms of policy and in where some of the changes might begin. You also made a comment about salary, which I was just having a conversation with somebody on their show about those challenges. So how do you have a profession that people want to be a part of and then end up leaving because there are so many complications with it? Teaching in Canada is so different than the United States, but we have the same issues. So like I was saying, there's relevance to what's being discussed in your book, to the solutions that you have, but it really is practical. And even though you raise the issues in an honest, almost so straightforward a way that it's a little bit shocking at the beginning. But because you know that you're solution oriented, it makes you so willing to go through the process and be like, yeah, you nailed it. It's really a great text. Really great.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so this show, besides you catching up with me from a really long time ago, is about music. And I ask my guests to pick 3 songs. A song that reflects their past, a song that reflects their identity, and a song that motivates them, inspires them, gets them excited to begin their day or their task. Tell me about the process of preparing your songs, because you've actually had them for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it was just such an interesting little thing to go through when you proposed this for me. And actually, on one hand, I want to say it didn't take me very long at all, but on the other hand, I guess, as you know, I switched a couple. They seem like really important decisions to me because music is important to me. So I just sat with each one and 1 or 2 titles occurred to me right away, but it took a little while to pick the one I thought best represented those 3 areas.
Okay. Where does your nostalgic song take you back to?
That's an easy one. It takes me back to 1991 when I was on study abroad in Sydney, Australia, for a semester. It takes me actually right back to the housing that me and my 3 American roommates were in, where we listened to this song endlessly.
Now, the version you actually sent me of this song is a live version from the Late Late Show. And it's interesting too, because in terms of this particular song, it's actually been recorded in 121 versions by famous people like Jimmy Cliff and Ray Charles and Sonny and Cher and Richie Havens and Nancy Sinatra actually in the same year. And it's even the title of a book I read by Dr. Wayne Dyer that was super inspirational. But originally written by Johnny Nash in Texas, the Hothouse Flowers have a totally different take on it. So what were you going to say to introduce it to us?
Okay, so this one does take me back to Australia on my semester abroad, where I discovered it and inflicted it on my 3 American roommates all 6 months long. It's just an incredibly powerful song to me, and it's one of the few examples of a song, in my opinion, that's better than, I was going to say the original, but I guess there's many, many versions of it. So I'll say it's my favorite version of it.
Okay, well, let's play it. This is I Can See Clearly Now by the Hothouse Flowers.
See clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that have me blind. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day. Think I can make it now, the pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is the rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be bright, sunshiny day. Ooh, bright, sunshiny. There's nothing but blue skies. Look straight ahead, nothing but blue skies. Blue skies.
It's a really different version, actually, but all the songs are like hope and about overcoming adversity. What is it about this version that speaks to you so much?
I don't know. It's a powerful song about optimism, simple and clear. But I really like the passion in this version of the guy's voice. I actually don't know the lead singer's name. So I don't know why at that time it became so meaningful to me. I think mostly it's the feeling that the song induces. I was certainly not unhappy or in need of looking on the bright side when I was in Australia, because it was an awesome time for everybody. But that song just stuck with me.
It's amazing how songs do that. And when you listen to it, are you back with your roommates in your mind?
Absolutely. We're sitting around the table playing hearts for 6-hour stretches in the night.
And you just ended up with these roommates?
I did. One of which eventually became my wife. So that worked out.
Ah, good story.
It worked out. She wasn't actually my roommate, but she spent about as much time with the 3 of my roommates as any of us. So it was, so I guess this song is attached to that too.
When you were talking about Australia, I went right to the live version of your next song because, well, it's your identity song. This Live in Australia album was pretty legendary, not just in terms of the costumes and the singing, but actually this artist had surgery and didn't tour for 18 months afterwards. And the surgery actually permanently changed his range. So it was a really pivotal moment to be able to capture, I guess, his former self, although it never really stopped him from doing amazing work. And the lyrics are really beautiful. But what is it about this song that is your identity?
Well, honestly, any Elton John song would work for my identity. I picked this one because not everybody knows it, and it's just as good as most of his eternal classics. This really does not make me unusual in this world, since there's millions of people whose identities, the soundtrack to their life is Elton John. But I'm one of those people for sure. And I know exactly when it started. I was, in fact, on my way to camp, actually.
Really?
And I think I was 13, and I had some extra gift certificates to Record Mart in Pittsburgh. A little bit of money not spent, and I remember we're driving right by the store. I screamed for my parents to stop and let me run in there and get one more tape to take with me to camp. And I remember standing at the rack of tapes in Record Mart, and I saw the Elton John name. It meant very little to me at the time. I think the only song, there might have been 2 that I knew. I guess that's why they call it The Blues, was out. And maybe Empty Garden. One or the other, or both, I knew. So I couldn't find anything else I want, and I had just enough money to buy that tape. So I grabbed it, back in the car, driving all the way up to Toronto. And I wore that tape out, Too Low for Zero, the album, that summer. And I guess I have a habit of inflicting my music on other people, because I made the whole cabin listen to it endlessly, and made some fans out of them. But from there, I just discovered all the rest of Elton John's music, and I literally have not stopped listening through any phase of my life to just all of his music. So I guess it's nostalgia too, but it's really, his music is just wrapped up in my whole life. So I Need You to Turn To, again, I picked because it's such a beautiful song, and it's just, he has like, I don't know, a couple of dozen songs that you could hear and wonder why they're not as famous as all the number one hits he has. It's truly remarkable. It's
really a beautiful ode to love in so many ways. So let's listen to the song and we can talk more about it afterwards. I Need You to Turn To, from Live in Australia by Elton John.
You're not a ship to carry my life. You were nailed to my love in many lonely nights. I strayed from the cottages and found myself here. Oh, I need your love. Your love protects my fears. And I wonder sometimes, and I know I'm unkind, but I need you to turn to when I so blind. Oh, I need you to turn to, and I lose control. You're my guardian angel who keeps out the cold.
When did writing become part of your identity?
Writing? I did not grow up wanting to be a writer. I was not really much of a reader, really, either. Until, actually, funny you bring it up now, because I didn't start reading until my Australia trip. I mean, obviously, I read what I was supposed to read in school, and there were a couple of books that I absolutely loved to death as a kid, Lord of the Rings, for example, but they didn't turn me into readers. So on my way to Australia, I had so much travel time, and somehow the thought dawned on me that I was pretty illiterate in terms of having read nothing. So I started reading everything I could get my hands on, and I read a ton of books in Australia. But what I also did in the few months before, I had a kind of a gap in time between the end of my first semester at Michigan and before I was leaving in February for Australia. And I read a play that sort of transformed me called Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. You familiar with that? Hamlet, yeah. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Hamlet's friends that are summoned, and they wind up dead, right? So it's an absurdist play about fate and a breakdown in free will. And it's hilarious, by Tom Stoppard. And so I did what I guess a lot of writers start doing, which is completely rip off the first thing that inspires them. So I wrote my own two-person play that was absurdist and just full of banter. It was called Gods and Cats, and it was about two brothers appearing at religious spots around the world and kind of just having funny, amusing conversations. So when I came back from Australia, I showed it to some professors in the play department, in the drama department, and was invited to participate as a non-drama student in a workshop for it, and developed it a little. And when I graduated, I sent it into a theater at Flint because there were signs on the wall, as they always are in drama departments, for submissions. And lo and behold, this theater produced the play. So that was the first thing I ever wrote, and that was the first place I ever sent anything to. And I most definitely got the wrong impression about how easy it was to succeed in writing. So I kind of dropped it after that. And when I was in graduate school, I'll try to keep this story short. When I was in graduate school, I was doing an English degree because I thought I was going to get a PhD and go teach college. And I really wasn't feeling great about what I was writing. I felt like I was making up too much of it. And I happened at that time to be exposed to another author that completely transformed my life. Jorge Luis Borges is his name. He's an Argentine genius who basically sort of invented his own genre. He only wrote short stories, but they would be about things like, he would write a book. The story would be a book review about a non-existent book written by a critic who didn't exist either, with fake footnotes and everything. So I'm reading these stories and they're just blowing me away. And I'm thinking, this is like what I feel like I'm doing in my English master's program. I'm making up scholarship. I didn't know you could do this and call it fiction. So I did the same thing and immediately started to write my own short stories like that, and started to submit those to little obscure literary journals, and got a few accepted, and my first taste of lots of rejection letters. And it just sort of went from there. I've had a writing career that has had very little strategic planning, because I just went from those short stories to working on my novel for adults. And when I was doing my teaching degree, I don't even know why I tried a picture book for kids, but I really had fun with that. So I started submitting that, and I basically write whatever I feel like. That's the moral of that story.
That's actually amazing, because so many people end up being, compartmentalized by whatever style of writing that they do. And I mean, not only just the diversity, but I think, when you read your book for teachers, there's a style, there's an eclectic nature to the topics that you cover. And I wonder how, your writing styles and your experiences in all different genres contributed to that, because you have this sense of generalism, but you also have a deep sense of each topic. So you're navigating almost both senses of the topics that you're covering, and you're doing it in such a way that, you cover it with research and you cover it with thinking, but you also cover it with personal experiences that make it feel so personal.
Yeah, I mean, maybe all the fiction I've written prepared me to be able to put this kind of thing down in a way that's engaging and palatable. I don't know. I was really unsure about this book when I went into it. I was willing to try it because, like I said, I like to sort of try all the different types of writing and aim at all the different types of audiences. But with this book, I wasn't sure. Honestly, it just felt like common sense, which I'm pleased people are praising it for, because I guess common sense isn't so common. But when I wrote it, I just wasn't sure that would make it necessary. And the other thing is that so many teachers that I know share these opinions. And I'm like, am I going to just be telling people what they already think? So I shared early drafts of it. And the teachers who read it, my colleagues, were just like, okay, yes, we agree with a lot of these opinions, but we can't believe somebody's finally putting it on paper in a way that maybe someone will listen to.
Yeah, that is what makes it so amazing. And that's why it resonates, I think, too, because, great writers and great creators, they dream to dream for others, and they do that. And in so many ways, you have found the words that so many, think about or marinate on, but you've articulated it clearly and succinctly. And I think a lot of people will feel that connection to you because of your willingness to do it. What was the process of writing the book like for you?
I didn't know how long it would be. I didn't know I'm not really a planner. Even when I write fiction, I just sort of go and keep going until I hit a wall and start over. Not throwing it away, but going back to the beginning and rewriting until I get a little bit further and hit another wall, and I go back to the beginning and just keep kind of doing that sort of circular pattern, which by now I trust that's going to get me somewhere. It was more difficult when I was first starting and unsure that I wasn't wasting my time. So with this one, I started by laying out these 4 ideas that you referenced to why bad ideas keep finding their way to our classrooms. The significant first one being, as you said, that the people who make these decisions have no training in education. It's just shocking. But I laid out 3 other ideas. And once I had those ideas, I thought, all right, what do I know? I mean, this book does not cover all the problems in the public schools remotely, but I just wanted to be honest and tackle the ones that I could. So I literally just went, I just started laying down the things that I've known and talked about and griped with my colleagues with over the years until it took shape.
But you go through this whole delicate dance, or not even delicate, and then you come back to this beautiful idea of what public schools were meant to be and how you have admiration for people who persevere. And it's just, there's so much personality in the book, and it makes me feel like I know you. I mean, I don't really know you. It's been so many years. I'm not even sure I knew you then. And this book, of all the things that I've read of yours, this book really makes me feel connected to you as a teacher, but also as a voice of reason in a very, very noisy world of educational theory and conversation and text. So it's a welcome addition, certainly, to my bookshelf. And I'm really intrigued at how other people are going to perceive it. But I really do think that all those testimonials are really how this is going to go anyway. So it's such an exciting time, and I can't believe I get to be a part of it right before it launches. It's so exciting. So things must get stressful sometimes, and you need a song that motivates you or picks you up. That 3rd song is like one of the most interpreted of the personal playlist. How did you interpret it?
Well, I chose this song. It might seem funny to pick a song that's so sad as a pick-me-up, but for me, again, it's a representative choice of songs, really, for this artist. So many of his songs are so beautiful, but also so poignant and sad. But they're inspirational to me. The writing, the storytelling, it's just phenomenal. How compact he crams these full, in my opinion, full short stories into these short songs with really characters that feel real and fully developed, that live an entire life in a song. And I've never been able to get over that. And I try to take a lesson from it. And also the way he ends his songs, usually with just something. When I teach kids, I call it a clincher at the end of their essays, that last line that just pulls everything together and just gives you chills and ties it up in a bow. So this is a representative choice of those types of songs.
Okay, here's Harry Chapin, A Better Place to Be.
This is probably the favorite thing of mine, at least to me, that I've written. And it's about a small town upstate New York called Watertown, New York. That's more than it deserves. I spent a week there one afternoon, and I came away with this story, which is a rather, strange tale of a little midnight watchman, a rotund waitress, and a girl he picks up one night, and it's called A Better Place to Be. It was an early morning ballroom, and the place just opened up, and the little man came in so fast, and they started at his cups. And the broad who served the whiskey, she was a big old friendly girl who tried to fight her empty nights by smiling at the world. And she said, "Hey, bub, it's been a while since you've been around. Where the hell you been hiding, and why you look so down?" Well, the little man just sat there like he'd never heard a sound. The waitress, she gave out with a cough, and acting not the least put off, she spoke. Once again, she said, "I don't want to bother you. Consider it's understood. I know I'm not no beauty queen, but I sure can listen good." And the little man took his drink in his hand and he raised it to his lips. He took a couple of sips and then he told the waitress this story. "I am the midnight watchman down in Miller's tool and die, and I watch the metal rusting, I watch the time go by. A week ago at the diner, I stopped to get a bite, and this here lovely lady, she sat 2 seats from my right. And Lord, 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 she was all right."
I think one of the reasons some of these songs aren't as well known as they could be is that he didn't care about fitting them into the 3 minutes and 25-second requirement for radio.
Well, I'm all about building outside the blocks. For everybody that's listening and wants to get a handle on your books, where should I send them besides to your website, www.davidmichaelslater.com, or to Twitter at DMSauthor? How will people find you, connect with your books? Follow this.
Well, my website will get you right into see all the different types of books in one place. We've also just launched a podcast on www.we'redoingitwrong.com. And that's obviously all about this book. But the platform is designed, we really want to take the conversation beyond this book. Honestly, I appreciate so much your reaction to the book. It's everything I could hope for and more.
Yay!
And obviously, I believe that I have some specific ideas worth discussing. But really, my greatest hope for this book is not that my ideas take over the world. It's that, again, the people make these decisions understand and realize they're leaving out the critical voices of teachers. And if they read my book, whether or not they agree with my ideas, I would love them to think, you know what? These are some good ideas. Maybe there's some other teachers out there who have some good ideas. So that would be the ultimate great outcome, is bringing teachers' voices forward. And that's what we're doing at wrong.com is meant to do. We're publishing short pieces, 400-word blog entries by anybody with any strong opinions about education. We're doing interviews like this one. We're publishing, we're sharing all kinds of information. So if any of your listeners want to join us, please come down to that website and check out how to submit something. Otherwise, my books, they're all small publishers, so you'd probably be lucky to run into one on the shelf of your store, though I've actually done pretty well in Canada. My first book, Cheese Louise, was published by a Canadian publisher, and one of my other picture books also by a Canadian publisher. So maybe your Canadian listeners will have an easier time finding them. But otherwise, Amazon, of course, Barnes & Noble, your bookstore can order any of my books, and my website.
I also, I want to connect you with Voice Ed Radio. This is a platform and really a kitchen table. So all educators, this is an inclusive space to talk education, and hopefully we can hear your podcast played in lots of places. And this is a conversation that you and I can continue. But, Voice Ed is exactly what you're talking about. This is where we have those critical conversations on education. And even though my show, which was, something that I had in my classroom, and reflects all my projects that help students use their lives and interests as a conduit to learning, would never have seen daylight or come to fruition had it not been for Voice Ed Radio and Stephen Hurley for saying I actually had a voice that was worth listening to. And this is a place where we get to have those critical conversations all the time. So I hope we'll get to have you back, even for a guest spot, maybe more, because, your voice is something we all need to engage with. But there are so many incredible voices out there, and we're all enriched by listening. So I'm so grateful for you taking the time to come on the show, getting to listen to your songs, getting to listen to more about the history of your writing and how this particular piece came to be. Is there anything you want to say before I play you out?
No, just thank you so much. I'd be happy to join you in any capacity anytime you want. And maybe we're doing it wrong.com can partner with Voice Ed in the future.
Well, let's talk about that. All right. Anyway, have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on the P3, the Personal Playlist Podcast. I'm Noah Daniel. This is Voice Ed Radio, and I hope you have a fantastic day.